What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Crunch Time. Jeff, Booner, Lucas here to break down the Detroit Lions selecting Enis Rakestraw Jr. with the 61st overall pick. They doubled up on corner, Terrion Arnold in the first round. They traded up to get him, and now Enis Rakestraw Jr., cornerback out of Missouri, 2 SEC corners. And guys, it was clear last year that they needed cornerback help. It's not that Brad specifically targeted corner, but it seemed like, hey, you have 2 guys, Terrion and Enis, first-round talent, and you got them in the first 2 rounds. How are we feeling initially from this pick? Because it just got announced probably about 20 minutes ago.
I mean, when I initially saw it, I'm not gonna lie, Enis Rakestraw is one of those players that I really did not have highest on my board, just because I do think he struggled a little bit when you talk about strictly coverage against the run. I think he's probably the best corner tackling against the run in the draft. And I think that's what it really boiled down to on where he ranked on Brad Holmes' board. Brad Holmes said that Terrion and Enis were his top 2 corners. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. But the fact that he was willing to say that shows the style. Enis is a guy that hits like a safety, and Terrion was a guy that used to play safety. So I think he really does like that DNA, because he talked about how picky he was. And we all kind of expected Brad Holmes. We could have saw him trading up from 61. He was able to stay put, save assets for both this draft and next year's draft, and get the guy that he wanted all along, even though it's not a position of need at that point, because he already took Terrion in round 1.
Yeah, and two, just with that as well, fellas, like the thing with Brad Holmes, when you're thinking about it in the last couple of years with him drafting, a lot of people probably were shocked, and we were as well when we were live there, shocked seeing another corner go off the board, especially Enis Rakestraw. So we were kind of shocked to see that happen. It's been very well known now that Brad has his list of guys, and that's where he moves to. And a guy like Enis Rakestraw, to where you hear Brad in his press conference after say, Terrion Arnold was our number 1 corner that we had in this draft, and Enis Rakestraw was our number 2. We literally just got our number 1 and number 2 corners in this draft at a need that was very, very well needed here with this Detroit Lions offense. And I think when you just look at what he can do, you got the value at 61 of getting an Enis Rakestraw at what he can do on the football field. He was a guy, we've talked about it a lot. He was a guy that could have gone late first, early second, that you see in a lot of mock drafts, him getting picked to go in those spots, and he falls all the way to 61. I think it's a steal, and I think now you get this competitive. You get kind of these guys are going to get competitive in that room. It's going to make each other elevate to a different level, which is what they needed. And if you do watch some film, and I watched some stuff on him already, guys, when we were live, he is a dog when it comes to, like, he a little bit how the Terrion Arnold is just flying around the field, and he's going to make plays. And I know there are some negatives about the game. I know, Klotz, you talked about it, but he's going to make plays, and he's going to compete for a spot, which I'm excited to see.
And I'll say this too, when you because I already got through the point about the value, because that's Brad's DNA is BPA. You got 2 guys that are worth first-round picks, first-round value players, and those are your first 2 selections. You could argue also that the weakness of this team, the secondary, is now slowly becoming now a strength, which is good. Now, the NFC North with the wide receiver talent, the NFC wide receiver talent, you look at it now, and this is quite the pivot by Brad Holmes. And you look at how they all could play together. Terrion Arnold's played in the slot. He played in it quite a few times this year for Alabama. Enis Rakestraw has played outside for really mainly his time at Missouri. And then you have Carlton Davis, outside corner, Amik Robertson, someone, again, who could play outside. Brian Branch was playing in the slot, but they want to move him a little more back to safety at times. So it allows these guys with the versatility they have to all play together. And again, Carlton Davis, short-term deal. Amik Robertson, not a super long-term deal. Emmanuel Mosley, futures in question with him. So you're and I don't think Brad thought, he might have thought about a little bit of all this stuff. Mainly it's the value. But that's also the side of it, is like, what's the future of these other guys? And now you get 2 rookie corners that eventually could be lining up on opposite sides of each other. And they could be the tandem that represent the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, and you even talk about just this year in general. If the 49ers don't move off of Brandon Ayuk or Deebo Samuel, they just added Ricky Pearsall. The Philadelphia Eagles, they didn't add anybody in the receiver room, but they just added Saquon Barkley. So now you want a cornerback that if Saquon Barkley, if you're playing cover 2 and he comes in the flat, you want a cornerback that can be able to tackle him in the open field. And I think that both Terrion and Enis can do that.
At an elite level.
And Brad, he didn't speak on this, but when I look at Enis, I wonder if when you look at Ifeatu Melifonwu, was drafted as corner in college, kind of wasn't the most polished cover guy, but against the run, he was stout. They move him to safety and they move him inside the box. So I'm wondering if it's specifically in year 1-2, because they do already have Carlton Davis, just to get him on the field, Enis, if they kind of move him into like a nickel type of role, just because he is such a sure tackler that you can use him inside the box, even on like goal line situations. If you got a tight end in there, TJ Hawkinson, if you got Luke Musgrave, Cole Kmet, if you have somebody like that, if you can put Enis Rakestraw on him, I think that's a mismatch for the defense, just because he does have that athletic ability on top of that.
I think we could all agree. It gives Aaron Glenn a lot of different opportunities to move guys around and make some moves and actually put a competent defense out on the field. You were top 20, you were the 23rd last year. Now it's time you have the guys to do it. There's no excuses anymore. We talked about it on the live stream. It's just you have the weapons and the pieces to go out there. If you need to move it, Enis Rakestraw, to different position, like you can do that now, which I'm excited about. Honestly, the one thing too, I don't know if you guys saw this. I just saw this. Brad Holmes does like injured players. He did tear his ACL in 2021, and he missed a few games last year with the groin injury. So that's not a bad. I'm not saying that as like Brad, what are you doing? Because again, I trust in Brad, and I'm locked in on that. And I think this is a good getting Terrion and Enis Rakestraw, your 1 and 2 corners in this draft. Getting that is this absolute steal with the spots that you had to pick at. That's just something to kind of keep an eye out on. Is that did happen as well. I don't know how that would affect his game now, though. 2021 ACL, probably not as much.
Probably just speaking of the reason why he fell. You know what I mean? Just because he did have that injury. And then I'm pretty sure the groin injury caused him some problems this offseason, especially with testing and stuff like that. So that's probably the whole reason why Brad didn't have to move up to get him.
Value at 61. That's what it is. It's value.
It is value. Whether whatever you think about the player. I know for me, we talked when we were live streaming for day 2, and we will be live tomorrow, by the way, for day 3. One thing we all talked about is what's an ideal situation for the Lions? What do we prefer? I said offensive line, and you guys felt edge, and we were talking. We didn't talk about another corner. We mentioned it briefly. This to me kind of speaks how Brad feels about the edge class and really the depth, the lack thereof. Like in the first round, and we've had this conversation talking draft, is if you don't address edge in the first round, the next best player, if we're going off Brad's philosophy, is either going to be offensive lineman or corner or wide receiver. And clearly, with Rakestraw falling, it changed things, and he felt like he was the best player available. So, regardless of the needs, he did address, at least on his board, best player. So, again, unless you don't agree with his process, which his process has been working, we have not been huge Enis Rakestraw fans, but we get the philosophy. We understand why he selected Enis. Like I understand it, and I do think he has upside.
Yeah, it feels like a pick that in a year from now we're just gonna look back and it's yes, this is why he did it. Now we know why he did it. That's what this feels like, and if it kind of felt like that last year in the draft, and you tell yourself, okay, when you have these picks from Brad Holmes, sometimes they seem a little crazy right away, but just give it time. And like when we did the stream, we had the reaction to where I was like, oh no. And the reason I did react to that way is because we talked about Enis Rakestraw a lot and how we didn't like him at 29, but to be able to get him at 61, I think now that once everything settles, in a year from now, you're going to look back and you're going to have Terrion Arnold, Enis Rakestraw, Carlton Davis, and you're going to have one of the best secondaries in the NFC. Because I talked about that last night when we ended the show. This, even without him, this is an opportunity that they can have one of the best secondaries in the whole NFC in the next year or two. And I think this just kind of adds to it and helps kind of boost that up a little bit quicker.
And the real question is, what do you guys think? What do you guys think of the Enis Rakestraw pick? And Enis Rakestraw Jr., what do you think of the pick? What do you think of really what Brad's done so far this draft? Comment down below. Like the video. It does help support the channel and push the video out in the algorithm. Turn on the notification bell when you subscribe so you're alerted every time we post. And like I said, we'll be live tomorrow for day 3. Until next time, Jeff Iafrate, Booner, Lukas Klotz. We'll catch you guys.